Now before you rage click away from this video and give it a thumbs down, hear me out, because I'm willing to bet the answer I give you is not the answer you expect. Why are Hellcats so accident prone? Now, I didn't actually know that was a thing. And then after I started looking into one, I was seeing on the forums and that, like, everybody's like, oh, you know, this Hellcat or this Charger, this Challenger killed a family of blah, 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 and it lost control on the interstate. And I'm like, okay, you know, so I get that. Like, these are just random people. But then when I announced to my audience that I was going to get a Charger, I started getting the same thing. They're like, oh, you're going to die, and that car sucks in the winter, and terrible car, just terrible. A good family car is the car that'll launch your family through the windshield. And I'm like, oh, so apparently people don't know. It's not just some off audience that doesn't understand inanimate objects can't kill people. So it's time to explain. Why are the whole Dodge muscle car line so accident prone, and why do they kill so many people, and why are they in so many accidents? There's actually 3 answers for this. The first answer: because there's a crap ton of them. Just drive around. You probably can't drive for more than 20 minutes without seeing a Charger or a Challenger. As a matter of fact, I pulled the data on it. I took a sample year, 2019, because I figured that was before the pandemic, so that would be normal times. We would see, you know, standard numbers. Chargers, 60,997 of them were sold. Challengers, 96,935 of them were sold. I'm like, well, you know, maybe that's just average. Let's pull some other, like, muscle cars and see what kind of sales they got. One of the ones I wanted to pick on was the STI, so I figured I'd pull that number. WRXs and STIs combined, they only sold 21,838 of them. Okay, you know, maybe more than just me hate the STI. Maybe that it's common knowledge that the STI sucks. So let's pull another one. What about a Corvette? Let's get Chevy's offering. What do they sell? I should have pulled Mustang, but I didn't even think of it. Corvettes, 34,822 of them. The Chargers and Challengers are exponentially more than these 3 car companies combined. So let's say that the average number for a car crash is 1%. You know, every car that made, 1% of them will be involved in some sort of collision. That would mean, because you got to understand, there was only 2,285 actual Hellcats made, but dollars to donuts. If a Charger or a Challenger gets into an accident, it's a Hellcat. Doesn't matter if it's a V6, that's a Hellcat, because that's just what I see. Especially in those comment sections on the forum. They don't say Challenger SRT or Charger SRT or Challenger RT, it's just Hellcat. And I highly doubt, with this little of them made, that there's that many accidents. So let's pretend that 1% of the Chargers and Challengers get into an accident that are made. That's 1,580 accidents with the Chargers and Challengers. STI, 220. Corvette, 350. You see why the number is taken out of context? What matters is per capita, which I can't find. What per capita is you take a set number, say 1,000 units. Out of 1,000 units, what percentage of those are going to crash? And because I don't see it per capita, you just see like X amount of Hellcats crashed in this year, which is damn near as many Hellcats that were made, and I guarantee not like 100% of Hellcats that are made are crashing. It's just not possible. So, it's got to go per capita. So the only way to look at it would be like take 1,000 units at 1%, and that's what it would be. So because it's not per capita, and they're just doing totals, the number's out of context. It's got to be per capita. Because they make so many more Chargers and Challengers than any of the other cars, of course the numbers are going to look high, because there's more of them on the road. My 1977 Chevy 3/4 ton is the safest vehicle ever made. It's never crashed once. Why is that out of context? Because that's one car. That's a single one. Now you take all the 1977 Chevy 3/4 tons, now it's not looking so safe anymore, because the more that are on the road, the higher likelihood that one of them is going to get into an accident, whether it's their fault or not. Because there's a metric ton of Chargers and Challengers, there is going to be a metric ton of car accidents with Chargers and Challengers. It's just the way it works. So, let's wipe that off the table. Let's pretend that that is not the explanation. Let's pretend that car company Z makes just as many as Chargers and Challengers. And we'll pretend that the Chargers and Challengers, even though there's the same made as car company Z, that the Chargers and Challengers still have more accidents. We'll pretend that Chargers and Challengers, 5% of them wreck. But company Z, which makes the same amount, which is still a sports car, only has 1%. The answer to this, good cars feel slow. That's just the way it works. That's why the STI has such great visual. This way you can have good depth perception. You can see on your peripherals. That's why they sound so loud. There's no cabin noise insulation. That's why the ride sucks. Because all that shit added up together tricks your butt dyno into thinking you're going faster than you are. You will drive a crappy car. Now when I say crappy, I don't mean like a pile of crap car. I'm talking like an STI. You will drive an STI marginally slower than you would drive a good like Charger or Challenger. Because the Charger and Challenger has such a good ride, especially if you get like tint on the windows so you don't have peripherals, you will drive it faster. The STI, you have great visibility. The exhaust sounds loud inside. You hear a bunch of road noise. It handles the bumps like crap. Because you're feeling acceleration as you're going over the bumps, you can see stuff whipping by on your peripherals. It makes you feel like you're going really fast when you're not. So if you drove an STI at an average speed of 68 miles an hour and you jumped into a Challenger, you would drive it at a higher average speed just because it feels like you're going slower because it's a better built car. The same thing even happens on race cars. They'll put wind nets and stuff. Yeah, they serve other purposes, but one of the unintended advantages we found is that having the wind nets sitting there in a stationary position, the race car drivers drive faster. If it was just clear visual on the outside, because they have stuff whipping by the peripherals, they will drive slower. And this isn't something I've just made up. They've tested this. This is a fact. They've even put people in driver simulations, shut off the peripherals, and they drove at a higher average speed than when their peripherals were on, when they had good visibility. So if you have a car that's like, it's shaking as it's accelerating, you're hitting a bunch of bumps and the exhaust is loud, you will drive it slower. That's the way it is. Cars that are loud, that ride like crap, you drive it slower. The car might be capable of going faster, but you're not. Now you take you driving that same exact car, and again, put it in a nice car that drives smooth. It doesn't have crazy loud road noise. It doesn't have shaking when you accelerate. The exhaust has a nice taint and rumble to it. You'll drive it faster because it doesn't freak you out as much. You can test this. Here, I'll post a driving video and I'll cut off the peripherals. Now with the peripherals, look at how much faster you're going. Cut off the peripherals, it instantly looks like you're going slower. Same with the center. If you were to put something directly in front of you so you can only see on your peripherals, you will drive slower. Because things feel faster when it's closer to your face. That's just the way it works. So yes, people are going to drive the Challenger and Chargers faster because they're good cars. They really are. I have to keep using my Cruise because it rides so much better than my Malibu. I keep catching myself speeding because my butt dyno is still calibrated for the Malibu, and I'm like, okay, so I'm doing like 60, and then I glance down and I'm doing like 85, and I'm like, holy crap! Slow down, set the Cruise. Until I get used to the Charger and exactly what it feels like, I have to use the Cruise like all the time. Because it just rides better, it drives good, it rides and drives better, and it's a more comfortable ride than the Malibu, so I'm going faster. Also, if you feel taller up, it feels like you're going faster. Again, this is another thing they tested. When you bring the driver lower, they drive faster. When you raise the driver up, they drive slower because it gives them the illusion of feeling like they're going real fast. So everybody complains about the seat height in the STI and how much visibility it has and how much cabin noise it has. They did that intentional, so when people buy the STI, if they don't actually know what real power is, they assume that there's Jeff Gordon. They're like, holy crap, I'm flying! because I'm sitting up high, I have shit whipping past my face, it rides like crap, the exhaust and road noise is really loud, it feels like I'm hauling ass. Now you jump them in a Challenger and they're like, wow, this is a really nice driving car. Like, this is really good. Man, I'm really gaining on the cars ahead of me. Holy crap, I'm doing 85. Slow down. So yes, the Chargers and Challengers are just going to be driven faster than any other car that I've considered in that price range because they drive so nice. You take somebody out of a Charger and a Challenger, like on Tuesday, and you put them in like an STI on Wednesday, and you recorded the speeds, they will drive a percentage slower. It varies from person to person, how well they know the roads, but they will drive slower in like an STI. Just because that car gives you the illusion of going fast. Now, there is another percentage. A lot of people chalk this up to other people just can't drive and I'm the best driver. No, it's not the case. The real reason why people have troubles handling something like a Charger or a Challenger, now that's saying that these two reasons are not the reason. They crashed. They would have not crashed in a different car, but they crashed in the Charger or Challenger. That would be because there are no more rear-wheel drive vehicles really being made anymore except for pickup trucks. So all the newer drivers, they have to acclimate themselves to it. They don't know what to do if the back end gets squirrely or anything like that. Now like me, I haven't even owned a front drive vehicle until I was almost 30. Because in the early 90s, up to like, I don't even know when it happened, but it was just like a switch. All of a sudden everything's front wheel drive. But like late 80s, early 90s, everything was rear wheel drive. It's just the way it is. So if you don't have those skills, there's a steep learning curve. Now I suspect most people will take their time with the car, get to know it and stuff like that. And the only reason that there's so many more crashes is because there's so many more of them being made. But if the car was actually at fault here, I shouldn't say the car was actually at fault here, the person was actually at fault for not understanding the car, it would be because it's rear-wheel drive. It's a different style of driving. You drive it different in the winter. When you're taking off fast, it'll handle differently. Like a front-wheel drive, you'll get torque steer. You don't get that in a rear-wheel drive, but yet you can get the ass end getting light and squirrely. It's just a different type of feel. If you're not used to it, you know, you have to take it slow. And I suspect there's a small percentage of people that jump in it with their red key and drop the hammer, knowing nothing about the car, because there are stupid people, and you can't fix stupid. Now, would they have crashed in, like, say, an STI if they just jumped in it and dropped the hammer and started whipping corners without understanding the car? Probably. But it just so happens to be that, you know, a rear-wheel drive car is a percentage harder to drive than, like, an all-wheel drive car. You just got to understand it more. There's a little bit more to it. Like I said, it's a steeper learning curve. An all-wheel drive car, front-wheel drive car, the learning curve isn't that steep. It's easy to climb that without a problem. Rear-wheel drive car, especially a rear-wheel drive car with power, that's a steep learning curve. And again, I suspect there are a percentage of people, I suspect it's a small amount, because really, who's got like 70 grand laying around and jumps in a car without respecting it? Usually, if somebody got 70 grand, they work really hard for that money, and they respect the car, they slowly learn it, slowly start feeling it out, slowly start accelerating with it. But, you know, there's always the ones that are like, their dads are like, psh, here's a $70,000 check, go buy yourself a car, and they jump in a Hellcat and immediately total it out because they have no respect for the car. With great power comes great responsibility, but I honestly do believe that's a very low percentage of people. I suspect most of it is because they make so many more of them, and they go from like their tuner car that they put thousands of dollars in it, and they're just tired of getting waxed by everyone, which rides like crap, has loud exhaust, has great visuals, and they jump into a Hellcat. It don't even have to be a Hellcat, even an SRT. They jump in something like that because they're tired of getting waxed every time they try to race someone when they think they're a speed racer, and they just drive faster. They normally flap to this corner to what feels like them, what they can normally take at 60 miles an hour and say like a Honda Civic SI, and they don't realize it, but now they're in their Charger and they're doing over 100 because it just feels slower. Lose it and crash. But that is my theory, educated guess, I guess you would say, on why there are so many more crashes in Chargers and Challengers over the other cars. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.